Hello, can you all hear me? Great. Did you enjoy the break? Great. Great food. I'm really happy to be here today for so many reasons. The first one, it's my first time in Tunisia, and I'm loving it. I love the people, the city, the food. It's amazing. And the second reason is I'm really happy to be at this conference because a few years ago, I was sitting there. I was listening to many people sharing their experiences, ideas, and I learned so much from them that after having experiences in Vistaprint as an Agile coach and so on, I would like to bring all those learnings back to you, to the community. Before I even start, I also want to make a confession, which is that since I was a child, I wanted to be a rock star. For those of you who have heard me singing, maybe JP and Mario, bad luck, I'm not gonna make it. So this might be the closest I'm going to be of being in a stage in front of a crowd. So actually one of the things when I was a child that I really like about becoming a rock star was meeting many people. But one day I was reflecting and I was thinking, well, if you're at the stage and people are far from you, how do you get to know them? So I want to change that a bit today. So I'm going to ask you a few questions, and I hope you can engage with me, responding with your body language. The first question I want to ask you is, do you work in an Agile environment? So after listening to Mario, do you think you work in an Agile environment? So if you think so, stand up. Don't be shy. I just want to understand where you're coming from. So I have another question, and you're going to be standing up and sitting down along the presentation. I'm sorry. The second question, I want to know if you are a university teacher, a student, IT engineer, software developer, designer. So stand up if you're any of those. Engineers, designers, students, teachers. Okay. We're having like half-half. Okay, you can sit down now. I am curious to know, as Noel introduced, if there's anyone working for the public sector or public companies. If so, stand up. Great. Welcome. Thank you for coming. And I also need to know if there is any coach, Agile coach, or a Scrum Master in the audience. So stand up. Cool. Great. Thank you. I promise this is the last question. Stand up if you're a manager, a senior executive, a leader, someone who has direct reports. Stand up. Okay, we have a few. Perfect. For those of you who are managers, executives, leaders, do you ever feel you have a lot of tools, techniques, and now with Agile you have even more, and you don't know what to do with them? So kind of like this picture, you have a hammer and a nail, and you don't know what to do. The session today is trying not to write a job description about the role of the Agile leader, but to help you understand some of the attributes that you need to have in order to be a good Agile leader. No matter if you stood up or were sitting down, the session is for you. Because as Mario was saying at the beginning, the question is, who do you want to be? So you need to understand the role of an Agile leader. Now that I know a lot from you, I want to do this both ways. So I want to introduce myself as well. My name is Antonio. I honestly don't know why I put the picture here because you're actually looking at me face to face. Anyway, maybe I like to see my picture on the screen. I work as an Agile coach in Barcelona for Vistaprint. My main focus during the last year was actually training our leaders to understand what Agile means for them. So the attributes, but also the practices they can bring to their teams. So what I want to share with you today is actually some of those attributes and what does the role of the Agile leader mean. About my background, I'm a telecommunications engineer, so I complement it with some business studies because I'm really curious about, especially on Agile, the impact that it has outside of technology, marketing, creative, etc. And if you want to know even more about me, I play water polo, which is like handball in a swimming pool. I run marathons. This is a picture from last year when I went to Nepal with a charity called Street Child. This is another picture from last year when I went to Sierra Leone to do some fundraising. So this is me. I see you are all looking at me like, what is this guy doing? Is he crazy? His talk is like half an hour, 5 minutes, just talking about you and me. Do you know why I'm doing that? So this is the first learning you can take from the session today. As an Agile leader, you need to get to know your people. You need to establish connections. Mario mentioned before, briefly, the psychological safety piece. So that's really important. Don't just jump into work. Do check-ins. Understand who your people are. In a former company, not Vistapin, we did an activity which was asking people to write down something that they thought their colleagues didn't know about them. And people were writing things like, I have 2 children. I am married. I am not from Spain. I'm from Spain, so that was weird. So people were writing things that are like, how don't the others know that about you? So that's the first learning you're getting today. As an Agile leader, build those relationships. Start by talking about you, talking about them, understand what motivates them. So the talk today is 3 main pieces. The first one is to start understanding what the Agile leader role is. Let's talk about the differences between the traditional way of leaders. Then we'll talk about the 4 categories around the role of the Agile leader, and we'll finish with the attributes. But to start with, I am sorry because I want to make you work. I would like you to look on your right, on your left, behind, in front of you. Look for someone and have a conversation for 3 minutes about what you think is the difference between a traditional leader and an Agile leader. After those 3 minutes, you'll see me jumping here, which means please come back to me because we'll continue. Do you understand? Yeah. Go ahead. Mm-hmm. Okay, everyone, can you come back to me? Can I have your full attention? I don't want to jump, please. Come on. Did you have valuable conversations? So I'm going to show you right away a video that brings to light one of the main differences between a traditional leader and an Agile leader.
Stop telling people what to do. We tell people what to do so much we don't even know that we're telling them what to do. So here is a good activity. Here we have in the men's room. Please do not flush paper towels. Why? Probably someone flushed some paper towels down the toilet, clogged up the toilet, so the toilet was disabled and resulted in maintenance costs. So we tell them, don't flush paper towels. A better approach, let's be explicit about the impact of flushing paper towels. Like flushing paper towels results in putting the toilet under commission and higher maintenance costs. Stop telling people what to do. So an activity for you is go around your workplace, look for all kinds of signs like this where we're telling people what to do, take them down and replace them with signs that describe the impact of the activity and let them as adults, trust them as adults to do the right thing.
So what do you think about the video? Does it make sense? Yeah. Do you know David Marquette? So, yeah, he's the author of a very good book, Turn the Ship Around, and I recommend you to watch some of his videos on YouTube. He basically talks about leadership. He even gives a talk to the army. And what he's expressing in this video is basically, well, he's repeating it many times. Stop telling people what to do. Focus on the impact. So this is something that changes when you start into the Agile transformation, which is you want to move from outputs to outcomes. For me, when I first listened to this, English is not my mother tongue. So I was like, what's the difference between output, outcome? They look the same. So the way I understand it, and let me go through an example, is imagine you are a construction worker and you tell your team, build a bridge. That's the output. Instead, you can tell them the outcome, which is we need to go to the other side of the river. So the difference is you're telling people what to do, build a bridge. There's no creativity there, just build a bridge. Using outcomes, you're telling people, I need to go to the other side of the river. That would trigger some questions like, is it for you? Can you swim? Then I just throw you a rope and you go swimming. Cheaper. Maybe not faster, but so that's one of the main differences. A traditional leader tells people what to do this. An Agile leader focuses on the goals, the outcomes. So these are just some of the differences that I'm pretty sure you came up with during your conversations with your peer. What you have here on your left are some of the ways a traditional leader approaches the work. What you have on the right is an Agile leader. So on the left, you see many things around command and control, killing creativity, micromanaging, overreacting to risk. On the other side is more or less the opposite. You have things like embrace Agile, help them to be self-organized, embrace creativity, and create a fail-fast environment, which in other words means a learning environment. The faster you fail, the faster you learn. So this is the traditional versus Agile. Now let's focus only on the Agile piece. This is some work that a consulting company called Emergen did develop through time. It's a consulting company that worked with Vistaprint a few years ago. And it basically talks about the 4 areas that you need to focus on when you are an Agile leader. And those 4 areas are people, so it's bringing everyone's leadership to light, building psychological safety, so being able to disagree. The second one is about the value. Mario talked a lot about the value, so it's about creating a value mindset, always focusing on the customer. Who's the customer? The person who pays, and they have a choice. The flow. Sometimes as a leader, we become the barrier of the team to progress. And we need to help them minimize the waste, helping removing impediments. And then we have quality. So quality is all about feedback. It's about making something that works, but also ensuring that we're making the right thing. So getting feedback so we know that we're making the thing that the customer wants. So if you look at this picture as a wardrobe where you have all your clothes, this could be 4 different hats that you wear as an Agile leader. So depending on the situation, you focus on one area or the other, or maybe 2 at the same time, 3 or 4. When it comes to attributes of an Agile leader, some skills to develop. So they are based on this book, written by Greenleaf, I think it was in the 70s, called The Servant as Leader. And it talks about the different attributes that you need to have to be a good leader serving people. So let me walk you quickly through them. The first one is about meeting the highest priority needs of the people. So there are two pieces here. Of course, it's meeting the needs, but it's also about understanding. So what do they need? How can I help them? The second one is about creating opportunities for autonomy. We're talking about the bridge and crossing the river. So basically it's about switching a bit the language that you use so you help your teams to be autonomous to decide. I love this picture. An agile leader is also courageous. It's also brave. This is internally focused, but when we say courage, we mean the ability to stand up and speak, but it's also the ability to sit down and listen. So it's both things. So when you're a leader, reflect if you're doing both. It's not only about you speaking all the time, it's also sitting down and listening. And then, more externally focused, risk taker. Am I creating an environment for my people to take risks, to be innovative, to do things differently? Do you know who he is? Sorry, I couldn't hear. Do you think he was a good agile leader? What do you think? So I'll respond for you. We might agree or disagree whether he was a good agile leader or not, because if you read his biography, he was micromanaging, he was into every small detail. And we're talking something completely different here. But he had one attribute that it's really important in an agile leader, which is that he was a visionary. So he was able to know what was coming next. He had foresight, and he was able to transmit, to convey that vision to the team. Is this situation familiar to any of you? You're in your desk, replying to 5 phone calls at the same time, capturing requirements, texting. Do you think it's good, it's bad? Yes. So one of the attributes of an agile leader is that he or she optimizes and prioritizes. And the reason behind is not just for the sake of not multitasking. It's because he should be available. He should be available to listen to his or her team and listen for understanding. Most of the people know what they're going to reply. If you ask me a question, or if you're talking to me, I'm already thinking what I'm going to tell you next. So here, this is different. It's listening for understanding, not just to reply. Because we want to empathize. We want to accept, understand what's going on, never reject at first time. Everyone is fighting their own battle that we have no idea about. So the first thing we can do is listen to understand, accept, empathize. So this is a picture of Gandhi. I don't know if you're more or less familiar with his story, but he wasn't a big fan of public speaking. He was actually kind of introvert, but he was persuasive, which is another attribute of an agile leader. He didn't use his power to convince people. He used his words, his action. He was leading by example. So he didn't use power. He wasn't aggressive. And the last attribute is about creating awareness. So Mario was mentioning briefly before, but it's about bringing to light the challenges, the issues that you're facing. So don't just hide them. Don't just, forget about them. Create awareness of what's happening. So I didn't tell you at the beginning, but this is actually, it's not a talk, it's a test. So I want to test if you were paying attention. And actually, you're going to use your body language again to reply to a few questions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a few statements. If you think what I'm showing it's true, stand up. If you think it's false, sit down. Yeah? The first one. An agile leader is a courageous, brave, risk taker. Stand up if you think it's true, sit down if it's false. Okay, the majority is standing up. You were paying attention. Thank you. So we were saying you need to create an environment where people are willing to do things differently. You need to be brave to speak, but also to listen. It gets more difficult. An agile leader listens to provide solutions. Stand up if you think it's true, sit down if you think it's false. Come on, guys. Okay, everyone is sitting down. You were right. So, an agile leader listens for understanding. It doesn't mean he or she has nothing to say around the solution. He can provide input, guidance, but the main purpose of listening is understanding. And I promise, this is the last one. Agile leadership is about being proficient at multitasking. True, stand up, false, sit down. Okay, everyone is sitting down. You were totally right. This is false. It's about being available, prioritizing your work, optimizing, being available to your team. This is a quick summary of the attributes that I've shown you. If you thought you were leaving this talk with empty hands, sorry. I want to give you some homework. Have a look at this list. Pick one that resonates with you. Go back to your team and ask them, how can we work together so I improve this attribute? And then start taking the actions, because you need to be the change that you wish to see in the world. Thank you. Merci.